This is an AQA GCSE Chemistry question. It's based around the chemical reactions topic, and I'm going to recommend that you try each section, and then once you've tried it, review your answers at the end of the video. So here's parts A and B, parts C and D, and finally part E, which you can see is a 6 marker, and we'll look at that in a little more detail. Takes us to a total 11 marks for this question. So let's start off by looking at A and B. Question about acids and alkalis. Which ion do all acids produce in aqueous solution? A straightforward factual recall question. You have got to remember that that is H+. For part B, calcium hydroxide solution reacts with an acid to form calcium chloride. Complete the word equation. So we need to know what the acid is to begin with. We're making calcium chloride, and to make a chloride you use hydrochloric acid. To make a sulfate would be sulfuric, to make a nitrate would be nitric. In this case it's hydrochloric. And the calcium chloride is going to be made, but we also need to look at the fact that we have an acid and a base. And an acid plus base makes a salt plus water. Moving on to parts C and D, we've got the diagram here of the apparatus. We need to know what A is. Again, you need to recognise this. Straightforward factual recall. This is a burette. In terms of the reading of it, you've got to be very careful because you'll notice the numbers get bigger as you go down. We know that the answer is going to be between 27 and 28. We know it's in the lower half, so it's closer to 28. So we avoid the most common wrong answer of 27.4 and we go to the correct answer of 27.6. In terms of the 6 marker, we've got the question here, and I've also put down the level descriptors that will determine whether you're going to be in the 5 and 6 mark boundary, 3 and 4, or 1 and 2. The higher the concentration of a sample of dilute sulfuric acid, the greater the volume of sodium hydroxide needed to neutralise that acid. The student tested 2 samples of dilute sulfuric acid P and Q. How could the student use titrations to find out which sample, P or Q, is more concentrated? So to get to level 3, you would need a plan that somebody could follow to get a valid outcome with all key steps included. To get to level 2, you might have most steps identified, they might not be in a great order, and one might not get you close to a valid outcome at all. But let's go through the key steps to begin. You're going to measure the volume of the acid, you're going to add an indicator, and then you're going to add NaOH from the burette until you get the colour change to tell us we've reached the point of neutralisation. And we're going to record how much NaOH was added. But bear in mind we're doing a comparison of P and Q. We're going to repeat that with the second acid. And then we're going to compare those 2 values to see which is more concentrated. Now what we've got here is a design and a plan that would lead to a valid outcome. Depending on the nature of what you've written would determine whether that's going to be 5 marks or 6 marks. So let's have a look at what makes the difference. Well, there's keywords and there's also key principles. The fact that we will use a pipette to measure the volume of the acid, a burette to measure the volume of the sodium hydroxide. We might talk about doing a rough titration first. We might talk about swirling after each addition to make sure it's mixed. We might say we've used a white tile so that we can see the colour change more effectively. We might say that we add our sodium hydroxide drop by drop as we get near the end point to ensure that our results, when we read our volume for the end point, are as precise as they can be. We may have spoken about the base of the meniscus, that we read at the bottom of the meniscus, not the top. And we might have spoken about the fact that you do repeat readings and find a mean. And it's all of those sorts of things that add detail and add meat to the bones of the basic method that I outlined previously. That takes us to the end of this question. Thank you for listening.